The Ravens
back on the rails.
Awkward relationship with Lamar Jackson early in his career. They couldn't get him signed to a second contract. Eventually, his rookie contract expired. They applied the franchise tag. Plenty of teams could have signed him to an offer sheet that the Ravens maybe wouldn't have been able to match. Gladly surrender a couple of first-round picks for a talent like Lamar Jackson. But, collusion is real in the NFL. And this was just a year after the Deshaun Watson debacle with the 5-year fully guaranteed contract. So the Ravens eventually got the deal done. Now we're getting toward a spot where it may be time to adjust the deal because other lesser quarterbacks, most recently Brock Purdy, are getting more than what Lamar Jackson is entitled to over the balance of his deal. Here is Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta discussing the state of a potential contract extension for Lamar Jackson.
Well, we've had some conversations before the draft, after the draft, in person last week. I think we're in the introductory sort of stage of looking at what an extension might look like. We've got a lot of business that we're conducting with different players, and we're in a situation where we're blessed to have most of the team coming back. But as we look out over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we're trying to keep as many good players as we can. So we've got some guys that we feel like have the chance to really be prolific players for us that can be here a long time. We're trying to get as many of those guys signed up as possible. That's a big challenge, and Lamar's certainly a big part of that. But
Hey, look, the biggest problem the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson is he doesn't have a traditional agent. And so far, like we went through, and hey, he would have had a contract 2 years earlier. He would have been able to shed the injury risk sooner. Once you get that contract, you make money that's never coming back. Like Josh Allen got his contract and was making much more money than Lamar Jackson, and you can never close that gap. You went 2 years where the other guy's making a lot more, and you're still waiting for your deal. But it all worked out for him. At the end of the day, the Ravens gave him a market value contract, and now the question is, do they do another one, or do they let this one play out? And the problem for Jackson is at some point it plays out to the point where it may be harder for you to convince them to give you a market-level contract.
I think they're fine. I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson are fine no matter what happens because, Mike, the only issue they had, besides the agent issue, but the core issue was Deshaun Watson. I think Lamar Jackson looked at Deshaun Watson and said, well, there's a guy in my division. I'm better than he is. I'm more accomplished than he is. And he got a fully guaranteed contract. So I just think that, and it wasn't just Lamar. I think there were a lot of quarterbacks who looked at it and said, whoa, if this is on the table, what about me? Because there were a lot of quarterbacks in football at that time, for a guy who hadn't played in a year, by the way. He sat out the 2022 season. Hey, okay, he hadn't played, and he's getting fully guaranteed money. What about me? Now that they've gotten past that episode, and you think about 3 years left on Lamar's contract, an organization that is pretty functional, pretty forward-thinking. They don't get into unnecessary contract squabbles with their players. They really don't. So I think it's going to be, it's just a matter of when does Lamar want to do it. If he wants to do it now, he'll be one of the top 3 paid quarterbacks in football. But then in 2 years, he'll be where he is right now. Down in 7, 8, 9, 10. If he does it in a couple of years, he'll be in the top 3. Then a couple of years after that, he'll fall as new quarterback money comes in. But I don't think they have to worry about Lamar being unhappy, Lamar wanting to play for somebody else, asking for a trade. I just don't think that's on the table.
It did get a little dicey, though, and we're going to hear more from DeCosta in a second. I'd like you to put that graphic back up because this is a nuanced point, but it's not that esoteric. I rail all the time on the difference between the new money average and the actual value at signing. And it's important here because Jackson's contract was signed with no time left on his prior deal. So his new money and real money at signing were the same at $52 million a year. He signed a 5-year contract that pays $52 million per year. That actually puts him at number 3 if we were going to do value of contract at signing. Josh Allen's number 1 at 55. Dak Prescott's number 2 at 53, and Lamar Jackson would be number 3 at 52. And I hate that graphic too, and I'm going to probably request that it be banished because it's misleading. Josh Allen, if we're going to do new money average, Josh Allen's new money average is like $90 million a year because he had 3 years left on his contract, and they replaced it with, I think, a 5 or 6 year, $55 million contract. If you do a new money analysis, which the rest of those deals reflect, it's like 80 or 90 million. And that's the whole, I don't want to get up on that soapbox, but that whole new money analysis thing, it's a fiction created by agents to make the contracts look better than they are. And under certain circumstances, you apply it and it makes the contract look ridiculously better to the point where no one is even going to acknowledge it. So that's where the new money, old money can go a little haywire. My point is this. From the standpoint of what the deal is worth the moment you signed it, his contract still holds up well, Michael. At $52 million per year from signing, it holds up well in comparison to these other deals.
I think the only thing they're worried about, tell me if you agree with this, I think the only thing they worry about in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, and worry is in quotes, how do we get from being an excellent regular season team, always in the conversation in the regular season, how do we get that to the point where it translates in the playoffs and we get to the Super Bowl? It's the only thing they haven't done. He's got his MVPs. They've had a record-setting offense. They've had a record-setting defense. They've had home field advantage. They've been a number 1 seed. They won a division. They've done all these things, some wonderful awards and nice little flourishes from the Ravens. I know John Harbaugh was excited about the rushing record they got a few years ago, which got the ire of Vic Fangio. So they've gotten a lot of things in Baltimore over the course of Jackson's career. How do we get to the Super Bowl? I think that's their only issue.
Well, and in the grand scheme of things, let me just give you a different example. Their last quarterback, Joe Flacco. He was the 18th overall pick in the 2008 draft. Okay. 2012, Super Bowl MVP, which came at the perfect time because he'd bet on himself, put him in a position to be then the highest paid quarterback in the NFL as of 2013. And the way the contract was structured, the way their cap was, a couple of years later they had to redo the deal, and once again he was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He was twice the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Okay. By 2018, when Joe Flacco was firmly entrenched as a starting quarterback of the Ravens with no thought that they would be thinking about doing anything other than riding with Joe Flacco, what did they do? They drafted Lamar Jackson. Traded back into round 1 and drafted Lamar Jackson. And Flacco was at some draft party in the Inner Harbor, and it was like, well, this is awkward. I'm only saying that because that was 2018, 10 years after Flacco arrived in 2008. Well, the calendar now is 2025. We're possibly 3 years away from the Ravens quietly developing an affinity for a quarterback that's entering the NFL and quietly positioning themselves to get that guy and quietly stepping away from Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's what they did to Flacco, and he won him a Super Bowl. Now, Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback.
Yeah.
But my point is this. Every player has a shelf life. Every player has a shelf life. And every team, they're always looking as I motion toward the imaginary football machine. And for some reason, it's sitting here every time I think about it. The football machine where you take out the part and you throw it aside and you plug the new one in. And the Ravens have proven over the years that they are meticulous, that they are calculated, that they are strategic. I guarantee you they're already thinking, how many more years are we going to get out of Lamar Jackson, and when do we need to start thinking about finding our next quarterback? I guarantee you they're already thinking about that.
Well, if they're thinking about that and they want to do it fairly soon, it will be one of the biggest mistakes in Ravens history.
I'm not saying it's going to be fairly soon. He's younger than you think. He's younger than you think.
He's not 29 yet? He's still 28?
No.
Goodness.
No, he's 28.
28. Well, if you think, okay, let's say it's 3 years. Let's say it's 4 years. You're still talking about a guy in his early 30s he's getting better. He's getting better as a passer. I don't think last year was an aberration. 41 touchdown passes, 4 picks. He's a good decision maker in the pocket, and he has accuracy. Think about some of the plays he makes where he has to pass, and he still is able to complete the pass. And both plays have one play led to both plays led to a heartbreaking loss eventually. His play on night 1 to Isaiah Likely, that pass against Kansas City, where Likely just misses, his foot is that much too big. What a throw. And on the line in Buffalo in the playoff game, down the stretch where he needs it, he needs to have something. He comes up with a great touchdown pass. So his accuracy, which I guess was always good, but I think his accuracy has gone up. He ran for over 900 yards last year. He's still a threat to run, but I think
I voted for him for MVP last year. I voted for him for MVP last year, and I stand by it.
He's incredible. So I don't know. I can see Lamar Jackson playing at this level for another 7 or 8 years. I really can.
Well, my point is the Ravens already, with a franchise quarterback that they twice made the highest paid player in the game, who won a Super Bowl for them, was still not the guy that Lamar Jackson is. They had a plan to move on. And I don't think they're there yet. I think they want to keep him. They know they're going to have to pay him again. At some point, the dollars become of a magnitude where the realities of the football machine take over. Here's DeCosta from the Be More Baseball podcast on the last negotiations directly with Lamar and dealing with Lamar's mom, who has been his de facto agent.
I never actually spoke to Lamar's mom one time in the contract negotiations. All of our negotiations were just me and Lamar, and they would be either on the phone, email, text messaging, whatever it was, in person. But it was just the two of us. And so the way the CBA works is that if a player is going to represent himself, he's actually going to do all the representation. Lamar's mom is not, I don't believe, a certified agent. And so by the letter of the law, that all of our conversations had to take place just between the two of us. And it was arduous at best. It was challenging at times. Lamar did a really good job. He's kind of a shrewd guy, negotiator. Took a lot of legwork. It was a 2-year process, and something that I think I'm very proud of, and hopefully he's very proud of as well.
One of the things that was brilliant by Lamar Jackson, he was just always kind of hard to, are we going to do this? He had a detachment, and there was a certain poker face to it where, there was no urgency. I'm fine. Hey, I'm in no hurry. I know I'll go play. I'll carry the injury risk. I'm not going to take the offer that you put on this table. It's substandard. I'm not going to get nervous and say, I'm leaving money on the table if I would suffer a serious injury. I don't care. Try to track him down, not available. He had a cool to it that most players aren't going to have. And I think that's the way to get your best possible deal. When you truly don't care and you're just going to go do your thing and you're going to trust that it's going to take care of itself, you put yourself in position to get a better deal because you don't have that urgency and that anxiety to jump. When are they going to make the offer? What is it going to be? Oh, we better take it. Oh, I better take that. He never had that. And, it really did make for a more effective negotiation.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast because you point to Joe Flacco. Flacco had the Super Bowl, but not the credentials that Lamar had. So I think the team looked at it after they won the Super Bowl. They had to pay him. But even after they paid him, I don't think they ever believed, despite what John Harbaugh used to say after their playoff games. He'd say this multiple. He'd said it multiple times. You can find him Hey, best quarterback in the NFL, Joe Flacco. You don't believe that. I know that's what you have to say. You don't believe it. He was never the best quarterback never a top 5 quarterback in the league. Whereas Lamar, you don't have that Super Bowl. You don't even have a Super Bowl appearance. But there's an argument for him being the best in the league, and he's got a couple of MVPs. And if things don't work out with the Ravens, he knows he's got the confidence, okay, if they don't pay me, somebody will pay me. If I just happen to go to the market, I'll get paid. So I don't really have to be forced to take a bad deal.
I got 2 quick points to make, though, and this one is fascinating. I'd forgotten about this. And it shows you the impact of the Deshaun Watson contract on the mindset of these teams. Because when Flacco was moving toward free agency, I remember the Ravens had a big decision to make. They had the exclusive franchise tag, which played out to being a ridiculous amount of money year to year and set the stage for them to pay Joe Flacco even more than they ended up paying him. Then they had the non-exclusive. Well, they were concerned about using the non-exclusive tag because that lets another team sign him and surrender 2 first-round draft picks, and there were teams that were ready to do it. One of the reasons they got that deal done when they didn't want to have to choose between exclusive and non-exclusive franchise tag, because if they picked non-exclusive, he was going to potentially leave, and some other team was gladly going to give up 2 first-round picks. Fast forward to 2023, the Ravens said, fine, go ahead. Go ahead. Non-exclusive tag. Go ahead. Somebody else can sign you to an offer sheet, and we'll match it or we won't. We'll take 2 first-round picks or we won't. And nobody, again, and they bent over backwards to explain why. Some of the explanations are ridiculous. Arthur Blank and the Falcons.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, just stop. Don't even try.
Exactly.
Don't even try. But that's one big difference. With Flacco, they were concerned that someone was going to sign him and gladly give up 2 first-round picks, so they paid him market value. With Jackson, and pick a team that needed a quarterback.
Half of
Ridiculous that they didn't pursue Lamar Jackson when they had the chance. And I know fans will say, oh, the Ravens would have matched. You don't know they would have matched. You don't know that. You don't know that they would have matched it. Nobody knows that they would have matched it. The Ravens made a chess move, and it worked out.
It did. And, okay, maybe the Ravens do match it. So that's good business for them, I think, unless somebody structures the contract where it's really inconvenient for the Ravens and puts them under financial salary cap stress. But how do you explain the other teams? This is still one of the things that I just look at and say, come on. The rest of the NFL, there are at least 10 teams, if not more. At that time, Lamar was, if you said he's younger than I think, so he's 28 now. He's 26. So you got a 26-year-old MVP available. All you got to do is give up a couple of first-round picks. I would. For an MVP at his prime, I sure would give up a first-round pick and money, and nobody talked to him. Nobody offered a contract. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. What's going on? So I'm not gonna use the term collusion, but
Michael,
collusion adjacent.
They're still hiding from us collectively. The NFL and the NFLPA have conspired to hide from us a 61-page ruling that was issued by an arbitrator that found evidence of collusion by the league against certain veteran quarterbacks who were denied fully guaranteed contracts. And the 3 that were the focal point of this arbitration were Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson. And that ruling came out earlier this year, and everybody zipped it and threw the key away, and no one is talking about it. And I can't for the life of me figure out why it's hidden, but the finding was there was evidence of collusion, but the NFL Players Association failed to prove damages. And I know some other stuff about why I think it's being hidden, but no one's actively trying to get it. I mean, we've tried to stir the pot as much as we can, and if they're not going to give it to us, they're not going to give it to us. But this is a judicial ruling and a matter of fairly significant importance between the NFL and the NFLPA, and they have collectively decided to hide it from everyone. Now that we're getting toward the slow time, I'm going to start agitating on that again. Why are they hiding a 61-page ruling on a fairly important issue as to whether or not the NFL colluded when it comes to giving fully guaranteed contracts to Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson. I'd forgotten about it. And that's what they wanted. They wanted us to forget.
But that's right. That answers your question. Why are we hiding it? Because if we just hold on to it for a little bit, they'll start talking about OTAs and mandatory minicamp and then training.
Bright, shiny objects. Bright, shiny objects.
We'll have the season.
Look over here. Ooh, look at this.
Yes.
Ooh, bright, shiny object. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.